our speaker for this session. Dr. Kamens is currently the executive director of Addgene, which is a mission-driven nonprofit dedicated to helping scientists around the world share useful research reagents and data. Addgene has been a Boston Globe top place for work since 2016 when it was voted #1. Dr. Kamens received her PhD in genetics from Harvard Medical School, then 15 years as a researcher and group leader in pharma at BASF Abbott, working on both small molecule and antibody therapies in immune disease. Dr. Kamens' focus on is founded actually the current Boston chapter of Association for Women in Science and received a Catalyst Award from Science Club for Girls for outstanding dedication to empowering women in fields of STEM, and was named one of the Pharma Voice's 10 most inspiring commanders in chiefs. She also serves on a number of nonprofit boards, including vice chair of Seeding Labs, board of directors and advisor for Seismic Job Board Scientists, which speaks widely on career development, mentoring, and workplace diversity topics in person and via webinar. So today, Dr. Kamens will be presenting Mentoring 101 for mentors and mentees. As I said, more than ever during these pandemic and times, and also to process some of the painful emotions we are going through inside us due to the injustice with minority communities, we need a mentor and who can help us navigate these difficult times. She will be telling us qualities of a good mentor, how to build a mentoring relationships, and practical advice on finding a good mentor and how to be a good mentor. I also want to point out that UC Irvine's Department of Cell and Molecular Biology reached out to me because they are launching their peer-to-peer mentoring program. And we thought this would be perfect time to give advice and some sort of training on how to be a good mentor when you're mentoring students and postdocs, and also how to serve as a good mentee, qualities of a good mentor. You should know what's ethical mentoring. So with that, I'm very glad and excited to have Dr. Kamens giving this webinar. And we are looking forward to hearing from you, Dr. Kamens.
Thanks so much, Surinder. It's great to see you again and to work together. We've worked together in the past, and it's delightful to use my network this way. So yeah, this is a tough day to just sit and listen to a webinar. So I am, I guess I would say the reason why I originally got involved in mentoring had to do with inequities about women in science. But one of the things that I discovered was that strong mentoring relationships was something that was really demonstrated to really move the needle for diversity of all types. And that is certainly true for underrepresented groups and Black people, brown people, and all people. And I think you know that the inequities we have in society are from a full pipeline of inequity, from how we treat children all the way to how we treat students, up into how we treat each other as adults. And so I think that mentoring relationships is the way that I have focused on making a difference in the world. So I hope you will see this as an opportunity to perhaps make a difference in your small part of the world to help deal with some of the things that are going on. Okay. So what is mentoring? Well, it's a very big word. It sounds somewhat imposing, but really I want you to get past that. It's not always a formal relationship. It's not necessarily something big. It's not necessarily to solve a specific problem. Mentoring is really a mechanism to focus on a plan for reaching future goals and skills to get there. And so you need multiple mentors, and we're going to talk about that. There can be technical mentoring where you're learning how to do things technically. There can be one-on-one mentoring where you have people sharing their advice with you and perhaps evaluating your approaches and your way of working. And there can also be group mentoring, which we're doing right now. I don't really know you, but I'm sharing my knowledge with you in this situation. And I hope that you will be able to benefit from my teaching about mentoring. So look, know it when you see it. It's happening all the time, and you want to watch for those good and positive mentoring situations. So why mentoring? Well, this day and age, I think we really can get it. Change is hard. Anxiety is hard. We've been thrust into an unusual work situation. Perhaps you've gone through life changes at the same time when accessing other supports are absent. Mentors really are support for making change. When you want to change yourself, when you want to change your surroundings, when change is thrust upon you, when you are fired, promoted, moved to a different group, moved to a different city, when there's an opportunity to do something new, mentoring can support all of those situations. So there are lots of types of change that we struggle with. The world is changing, work is changing, our lives are changing, our networks are changing. So there are many ways that we can utilize mentoring at this time, and always to support the stress that comes with change. And I try to see change as a positive thing and use it as an energizing force, but it can't always be that way. Change is always a little bit hard. So another thing about mentoring is it's been really shown to develop effective leaders and successful managers. So if you are, whether you are wanting to eventually run a lab or have a leadership management position in an organization, whether it means you're managing people or projects, mentoring has been really shown to be the most effective way to teach leadership development and succession planning. So many companies and organizations use mentoring, and we're going to talk about what makes those programs effective and ineffective, because they're not, it doesn't always work. There's nothing worse for mentoring than a bad mentoring program, because if you have a bad mentoring program, people are like, hey, this mentoring program is terrible, and then they think mentoring is bad. You know, but actually, when you learn how to do mentoring properly and how to integrate it into your education, it can be a huge benefit. As I mentioned, mentoring has really been shown to support diversity. This is an old slide. I hope I do not have to make the business case for diversity anymore. It is absolutely crucial that we diversify all of our workplaces and are more inclusive. Mentoring has been definitely shown to work better than diversity training or even networking in increasing the number of women and minority and underrepresented group leaders in management. So taking someone under your wing and helping them, shepherding them through a promotion process in an organization or in a career or in an area is just way better when you have good mentors to do it. Finally, everything's about communication. You will hear so many things that tell you that good communication is what makes projects work and what makes work work. It's how you learn the best when there's good communication. And good mentoring relationships really encourages knowledge sharing. So all of these things are challenges in the workplace that are constantly referred to in all kinds of literature and blogs and on social media. So mentoring can really, done well and done properly, can serve the purpose of advancing in all of those areas. So really, in my opinion, and I think the data also show that mentoring really grows talent and really strengthens the workplace. It creates better mutual understanding, which makes better work groups. Also, having a really good mentoring culture, meaning like Addgene tries to, when there isn't a global pandemic, have apprentices and interns and co-ops and high school students and summer students. Having mentoring as part of your culture is a way for showing respect for them, because it's an excellent way to promote productivity and retention. People like to learn, people like to teach, especially people in the science or STEM space. Because we are lifelong learners, it's even more important for us. It just shows respect for your staff. And I have a lot of other writings about leadership and about why this type of diversity is so important. So, okay, let's say you're looking for a mentor. I don't love the way these subtitles are blocking the slides. If you're finding the subtitles hard to see the slides, just maybe put it in the chat and I can turn them off. They work a little better in Google Slides and then in this program. Okay, so how do you find mentors? Well, you have to sort of create a list. And here's some of the ways you can look for who might be good mentors. You want to, okay, it's not good. I'm getting a couple. I'm going to turn off the subtitles. I apologize for that. It's a nice accessibility feature, but I will use Google Slides next time because their subtitles go under the slide. Okay. So you want to identify people who know how to do things you want to learn. So someone who's managed you before, maybe in the past, someone who has seasoned expertise in an area, speaks better, writes grants better, knows how to manage people, knows how to do project management, has a technical skill, knows about the neuroscience field that you're interested in. Maybe someone impressed you with a skill or insight that they had. And sometimes friends are of talents that you would like to gain. All of those people are potential mentors. Perhaps you're at work or at school. Why is it good to have mentors where you work or study? Well, because sometimes people already at your organization, even just a few years ahead of you, a postdoc or a more senior grad student, or a young faculty or a junior manager, senior manager, they're going to help you become an insider faster. Part of navigating a new workplace, whatever type of workplace it is really getting to know how things work in that place. Having mentors that are inside can be really helpful. You can also look for formal mentoring programs, and it sounds like you may have one, so that's good. And I'll talk a little bit about group programs. You can use networking, your university alumni directory, both your undergrad, your grad, your postdoc. If you were, alumni tend to really like to interact with other students, with other alumni of their organizations. So that's a good way to look for people who might have skills or knowledge that you would like. And don't mistake this for, an informational interview. You can always have an informational interview with someone. We can talk about that later, but this is really looking for someone who's going to go a little deeper, teach you something a little more with a little bit more contact. Use the people you know as advanced scouts. Ask them, tell them you're looking for mentors in certain areas on certain topics. And watch for organizational announcements, bringing in new people that have new skills. Who are the people you would like to be mentored by? So it is, as I mentioned, good to find mentors where you work. And these are some of the reasons. They can help you identify the skills you need. You'll have similar core values, so conversation will be easy and quick. But sometimes you really want to learn about what things are like on the other side. And so definitely having multiple mentors, some of which are where you work and some of which are not, is a huge benefit. I want to remind you that workplace mentoring is not a replacement for open dialogue with your direct manager. If you're having HR issues or serious issues with your PI, supervisor, boss, manager, any of those things, you really need to address them directly with HR or with an ombudsman. Or I don't so much believe in managing up. You can ask me about that later. I mostly think you have to manage out if you don't have a manager that is ethical or good or being a good mentor to you. So, but that isn't what mentoring is for. Mentoring is for your personal development, developing new skills, setting goals, and reaching them. Having a mentor does not mean you'll get a promotion. It's not a promise of promotion. And it's not an opportunity to gossip about other people and blame them or discuss the performance of others. That's not what we're talking about here. And that can be really destructive to the advantages of a mentoring relationship. Okay, so let's say you've identified some people who might be good mentors for you. So I would not call them and say, will you be my mentor? That's kind of a loaded word. It sounds like a really big commitment, and it may not even be what you're really asking for. What you're really asking for is, could you have coffee with me? I have some information. I have some stuff that I think you could teach me that I could learn. If they say no, people are busy, thank them for their time, their consideration, move on. If you feel comfortable, say, okay, I understand you can't help me. Here's some of the things I want to learn. Can you suggest someone else who I might speak to? That's good networking anyway. That's always how you should end an interview. And also, you've talked to the person. It compliments them to ask them. It expands your network. It's not really a negative. So, but there will be people who say no. There will also be many people who say yes. If they do say yes, then you want to set up a time to meet, either virtually or for real coffee someday. You want to be prepared. You want to prepare questions. So people sometimes contact me through LinkedIn and say, would you be willing to talk with me for half an hour on the phone? And I'm like, sure. And I talk with them and I say, how can I help you? And they have no idea. I have an enormous amount of literature online. There's an enormous about a lot of stuff on my LinkedIn profile that you could find out about me. It's not my job as the mentor to figure out what you want to learn. That's your job. That's the role of the mentee. So you really need to be prepared. If you're going to take the time for someone to give you their advice and their learning, you have to be prepared for that. You also have to prepare to be coachable. So here's kind of a story. I was a parent of one of the other kids in the school my kids used to go to, had been home for a few years and was getting back into the workforce. And a connection of hers, a mutual friend, said, oh, you should have coffee with Joanne. She knows a lot of people in life sciences in Boston. She could be really helpful to you. So we're having coffee, again, back in the old days, real coffee. And, I had taken a look at her LinkedIn profile, which was very bad. And, she says, well, I'm trying to get it to work. What I want to do is this. And I said, okay, well, let's start first with, how to kind of get back into the scene. So if you're going into for-profit, and if you're going out of academia especially, and you're not looking for academic jobs, you really need to get your LinkedIn profile looking good. It needs to look as good or better than your resume. It's weird if you don't have a good LinkedIn profile, and everyone really uses that as kind of a home base where to look you up. And she says, I don't do social media. I'm not going to do that. I said, okay. So then she says, I want to be a project manager. And I said, well, you know, project management in pharma and in biotech is not really quite what you think it is from having been a postdoc. It's actually kind of a certified position. It's a very specific learning. It's very hard to get those jobs externally. They often are given to people that are already within an organization who have some base knowledge of the project that they're being asked to manage and some certifications that go with that. And she says, oh, I was a postdoc. I managed a lot of projects. That's what I'm going to do. I know those are the kinds of jobs I'm going to apply for. It's like, okay. And then she says, yeah, and you know, do you think you could get, you know, do you have any recommendations for me? I said, well, you know, I cannot be your only contact. I don't know everybody. You really need to do a little bit of networking to meet people. You've been home for a long time. Here are 3 organizations that you might get involved with. And to my mind, and I have a whole workshop you can watch on networking. But if you want to meet people, you should do it naturally, like by working with them or by joining a group and focusing on that one group. And she says, you know, I don't really go out in the evenings. I'm not really going to do that. So even if you don't take all of the advice that your mentors give, it's pretty not helpful if you just tell them you're not going to do any of the things they suggest. They're not going to want to meet with you again if it doesn't seem like you're even listening or even paying attention to them. So really make sure that you prepare yourself to be coachable. Think about the advice that you're given before you respond. Be receptive. That's your job as a mentee. Be prepared and be receptive. So remember, don't be shy about asking for help, or not as shy as you want to be, because I know it's hard, but it is a compliment. You are doing something nice to tell someone you wish that you want to learn from them. So don't learn how to get over that shyness. It's the same thing with meeting people and building relationships. You know, there will be people who say no problem. Move on to the yes people. Some of these relationships take off, and you may end up staying in touch with someone for many, many, many years, and they may help you over the years on many different projects. Sometimes you just have coffee with someone, doesn't really go anywhere. That's not a problem. It's a learning experience either way. Some people are just mentors for a minute. You learn one thing for them. It doesn't develop into a long relationship. That's okay too. So you have to be very flexible with yourself and flexible with the people that you're meeting. So what makes a good mentoring program? And this is really, there's a lot of work and a lot of study done on this. So I'll talk a little bit about what makes things effective, and you can see on the slide kind of what makes things ineffective on the other slide. So what makes things effective is that mentors and mentees are matched. So this is not, the last slide was really about finding your own mentor, sort of one-on-one mentor. This slide is really more about how do you, if there's a program available to you, what do you want to look for? So if you just randomly match people together, like, oh, those 2 people are in the same office, they should mentor one another. That pretty much fails miserably. And that's a bad mentoring program, because you really need to match people based on a number of criteria. So if the people who are organizing are not doing some sort of thoughtful and intentional matching, I would be extremely wary. Formal goals are outlined and tracked. So mentoring is about change. It's about developing yourself. It's not about just sitting around and chatting. If you have formal goals that you're going for and your mentoring relationship is supporting you in getting them, and the program supports that type of framework, it's much more likely to be successful. Minimum time commitments are designated. So the program should say something like, you are expected to meet together twice a month for an hour, or once a month as a group for 3 hours, because that helps everyone be accountable and understand the responsibility. Hopefully the mentoring committee that's making the program is monitoring that people are meeting and building relationships. Both parties are accountable. If it's in an organization like a company, you want to have talent management involved, that, you know, if you are mentored and you develop, you have some opportunity to get some benefit from that. Also, you want to link it to the business strategy. What are the goals of this mentoring program? How does that link to where our organization wants to be vis-a-vis promotions, diversity, inclusion, talent, communication, whatever it is, you want to link it. And also you want to have everybody be trained. So everybody needs to be on the same page about what mentoring is about. You can't just throw it at them. So if you have a program where you're matched and told to go have coffee with someone and we'll see you later, that's probably going to be a big waste of your time. It might be a nice coffee, but it's pretty unlikely that one-on-one match is going to do anything for you. I myself am actually a big proponent of group mentoring programs. I think that one-on-one programs tend to fail miserably for most of these reasons. They tend to be very ineffective. But in a group mentoring program, there's something about the group mentality of reaching goals together that creates a much more stable dynamic. And all of the formal programs that I have seen be successful and that I've been involved in have been group mentoring programs. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few slides. So mentoring programs are, though good. Good ones are an excellent place. So peer-to-peer mentoring is excellent. I'm a huge proponent of peer-to-peer mentoring. They are excellent preparation for a rich future of mentoring. So practicing mentoring early in your career or at any time you get started can really help you be a good mentee and be a good mentor in the future. So you really want to be building that posse. There isn't one mentor that you're developing. You're going to be ending up working with multiple mentors, and that's a good thing. So as I mentioned, I'm a big proponent of group mentoring programs. Why? Because somehow that mismatch failure problem is much less prevalent in group programs. People somehow chip in and they're like, we're going to make this work. Peer advice is hugely valuable. Your peers really understand where you're coming from, and they're going to understand much better sometimes than a more senior mentor. And so their advice and learning with you alongside you can be hugely valuable. Also, everyone gets to mentor in a mentoring group. It's great practice for leadership, for management, for all kinds of things. And also, when you have an underrepresentation, say, of women or other underrepresented groups, you can have more diverse groups, and those people can have a bigger impact by mentoring multiple people. So I was advising so many different organizations on peer and group mentoring programs that I created a little bit of a handbook and a starter manual. So if you are interested in starting an organization like that, a mentoring program like that, please get in touch with me. It's really a helpful manual to get you started, and it can really make it a fairly easy process to embark on with limited resources on such a program. We actually do it here at Addgene because it's an inexpensive way for a nonprofit to have very high quality professional development. Every year we have a mentoring cohort that starts, one or two cohorts, and they meet together for many, many years, people from different departments that learn together as they develop in their careers. There's a question on the chat. How should mentors and mentees be matched for group mentoring programs? That's kind of a long answer. Thanks for asking, Remy. So I've been on the matching committee for the Healthcare Businesswomen's Association mentoring program and the AWIS mentoring programs here in Boston for some 15 years or so. There are many, many criterias, but for a peer mentoring group, it's a little easier. When you're having a professional mentoring matching, it has to do with a few factors. One thing is stage of life. So it's not good to match people who have been working 30 years with people who have been working for 2 years. Sometimes you want to match people based on location so that's convenient for them to actually meet. Nowadays, all bets are off though, because all the mentoring is going on via Zoom, and it's very effective, by the way. So that may not be a criteria in the future. You also want to, we have some surveys that ask people kind of what they want to focus on. And sometimes we try and match people more based on their developmental goals. Like, for example, one of the very common requests is, I want to be promoted, but I don't know how to do that. So we might match 3 or 4 people that want to be promoted, but don't know how to do that, because they're all going to want to learn sort of the same things. To be honest, we don't match them based on what technical or area they're in. You can have admins, lawyers, scientists, project managers, all kinds of people in a mentoring group, and it still be tremendously effective. If everybody is in the same field, there can be an added knowledge base there. So that's not a bad thing as part of the matching, but it's kind of an art. So mentoring programs for people that are matching randomly or they're not learning how to do this properly. One of the things about why our mentoring programs are successful is over the years, we've learned a lot about how to match. We do not do it randomly. It is like 10 women in my living room with a lot of Chinese food and nuts and cheese. For like 8 hours minimally. And then it takes many, many days for us to settle. We have about 20 groups in the Healthcare Businesswomen's Association program. Happy to talk to you about that more offline. Harinder posted a great link in the chat, and I'm happy to provide these resources later. I have a whole blog on how to form a peer mentoring group. And I love getting feedback that you've done one and it works. So please be in touch with me if it worked for you. Okay, so one of the little secrets of mentoring, and we always think it's focused on being a mentee. We want to be a mentee, we want to be mentored. But actually, some of the biggest benefits about mentoring are for the mentors. I do not have a single program that I work in where the mentors are not more excited and more pleased with what they gained from the program than the mentees, to be honest with you. It really enhances your communication and coaching and leadership skills. People like to teach, they like to give back, especially scientists. We love to teach. It helps us expand our perspectives and learn more about different people and understand them better. So many good reasons. So you can always be a mentor. It does not have to be something that you do senior in your career. There's always going to be someone more junior for you. There's always going to be someone more junior that can benefit from your mentoring. Okay, question. When appropriate, could I define success for a mentoring program or mentor-mentee pair? Great question. For us in a program, success would be satisfaction that you developed or grew during the year through the program. And we survey and we do a lot of metrics on this. I think it would be the same for a one-on-one program. Did you learn something? Was the relationship beneficial to your professional, personal development and growth? That's the key question you want to ask, because that's what you're trying to get out of mentoring. In group programs, there's almost a 100% correlation between groups that meet and groups that are successful and say that they were beneficial for their development in many different supportive ways. So if we can get the groups to meet and not cancel their meetings, and there's a whole separate, I won't have time to go into those details, it tends to be successful. Pretty similar with one-on-one relationships, because what happens is the first meeting is to get to know you. The second and third meetings are sort of getting to know a little more. But it's when you're reaching like the fourth and fifth meeting with someone that they begin to develop a trust, you begin to know each other, you begin to understand how to work together, and that's where the real work starts getting done. So meeting regularly for a true mentoring, and these are not like the mentoring for a minute, I learned something today relationships. Those are great too. But to get into a longer term relationship, it really is meeting regularly and being in touch. So that's the main success in my eyes. Did you grow? Did you learn? Did you gain some confidence in an area? All right, so we're going to talk about a few mentoring best practices since I build this as a masterclass. I'm going to cover just a few areas about asking questions, about giving feedback, about using content, and as I mentioned, setting goals is really, really important for successful mentoring relationships. So the first one is questioning. It's really easy to feel when you're a mentor that the best thing you can do is give advice. But it turns out that that's not what makes the best mentor. What makes the best mentor is someone who asks questions and gets you to really work through things that you're trying to figure out. Do as I say, not as I do. I am not great at this. This is something I work on all the time, being a better questioner. It's one reason, by the way, why people who are more introverted or quiet make fantastic mentors, because they're quiet, they listen, and they move the conversation along by asking questions. And that is, in every survey I've ever looked at, the mentors that get the most praise are the ones that help you think and help you dive into your needs, not telling you what to do. So there's a concept here called high gain questions. Those are questions that don't have yes or no answers. So if you told a mentor, oh, I gave a talk yesterday and I don't really think very well, and they don't say, oh, did your talk go well? They say, tell me more about that. Why do you think it didn't go well? It's not a yes or no answer. High gain questions are ones that dig deeper and make people think a little more about what happened there and what they can learn from it, right? So it's really a great way to think about is to be a better mentor and to look for good mentors or people that ask you questions that make you think, or you ask the good questions. Okay, another really important practice is giving feedback. So as a mentor, you need to give, and as a mentee, you need to receive feedback. Feedback is helpful, and hopefully you see it that way. It's hard not to be defensive, but people that are good at receiving feedback tend to do much better professional development and growth. It gets easier with practice. So another thing about being involved in programs early in your career is that it really allows you to practice this giving feedback when you're not in a paid professional situation. So for giving feedback, you always want to focus on specific issues. You don't want to say, you're really bad at this. You want to say, this thing that you did, I think it would be better if it went this way. What do you think? You want to focus on developing strengths and also praise. You want to tell people, hey, that talk went really well. This is the part that I really liked about it. You really need to be completely open and honest. And you need to offer suggestions for change. You can't just say, oh, fix this. You need to say, I have some suggestions for how you might fix this. And oh, for goodness sakes, avoid assumptions. The questioning is so important because this is a lot where biases kick in. This is how I think you should do it, but really what you want to learn is why did the other person do it that way? And then you can really have some breakthroughs in ways that they can be coached. I've already talked about how mentees need to be coachable. It's really important to listen. Sometimes you just want to write things down and think about it later. And that's a good way to get past that defensiveness. Maybe you ask for specific examples and seek clarification on the feedback that you're getting. So this is what all of good management is about, and a lot of good leadership is being able to give feedback and receive feedback. There's a whole, I could do, and I have done whole talks just on this one topic. So this is just a taste of this, but just so you know how important it is, I've included it here as one of the best practices. So I do not think that putting some STEM-minded, highly intellectual, a lot of the people I deal with are in this category, a lot of the Addgenes, whatever field they're in, whether it's science or non-science, they're all very bright, we're all pretty geeky here. I do not feel that you can throw a bunch of people like that into a room, either a one-on-one relationship or in a group, and say, just talk, figure stuff out, go ahead, you'll figure out your life that way. Really not helpful. So I am a big proponent of using resources, meaning an article that you and your mentor read together, or if you have a group, the group may have a topic that it covers in each group, in each session, and everyone does some reading or watches a video or reads a book, or the internet is a vast and useful resource to get ideas and things and topics for mentoring. I think Harinder posted about the Mentoring for Scientists ebook at Addgene. I give tons and tons of resources there. Some of them may be outdated. The book is a couple years old, but I've listed a few here, and all of the things on this slide, by the way, are in that ebook. So you don't even have to ask me for these slides. They'll be accessible, but you can also just download the ebook. It's free, it's a PDF, and it's easily accessible. So I like a little formality. I like the group to have an agenda, to have a list of things that you want to cover. You know, have some goals and expectations. You are working at mentoring. You are not just sitting around complaining about yesterday's event, or, you know, that's something you can do with your friends over wine. That's not a thing that you want to do while you're in a formal mentoring development relationship. And so it's really good to put some formality into your meetings and make them a working meeting, essentially, which is what they are. So I'm going to give you an example of content that I like to use with my mentoring groups and mentees in multiple different ways. And this is a good one for scientists because we love data, so data are great. I would say this example is actually in the mentoring book, and it is one of my favorites. This is much more fun to do in person. This one's a little tough. I usually do this with workshopping, so I apologize for the webinar style. So let's just say you want to figure out what's the most important thing for me to do today. So we use this technique called forced choice analysis. And in forced choice analysis, you list a bunch of things, and then you say, okay, oops, sorry, I'm going to go back one. Okay, here's the things I need to do today. And this is an actual day in my life, I don't know, probably like 9 or 10, maybe a little more, maybe like 11 years ago. And I'm going to say, okay, what's the most important thing for me to do today? I'm going to compare each of these items one to another, and the one that wins on more important is going to get a slash mark over here. So let's say I'm comparing number 1 to number 2. Give a talk, respond to a mentor issue. Give a talk is probably going to win because I'm the speaker, and it would be bad if I didn't show up to do that. So, okay. Then I compare number 1 to number 3, number 1 to number 4, number 1 to number 5, etc. Any one of those that wins will get a slash mark. In order to make sure they're all compared, you go back to number 2 and you compare 2 to 3, 2 to 4, 2 to 5. The reason why this works is that human beings are not very good at ranking 9 things, but we are very good at pairwise decisions. If I say to you, what do you want for dessert? You might think about that. If I said chocolate or vanilla, you would know right away which one of those is your favorite, right? Okay, so I did this exercise, and here's how it came out. No surprise, me being the speaker, that got the most number of slash marks. It's the most important thing for me to do today. So I have a project with a collaborator. Sometimes the things that you're doing with other people, they're waiting on me for something. When you're in a biotech, the lawyer is always waiting for something. So that's very important. Probably did not make dinner this day. Fish sticks again, maybe for the kids. Maybe I didn't have dinner. Maybe they had, I don't know, peanut butter sandwiches. Probably didn't call my parents till the weekend. That was not going to happen. Reading papers. I love reading papers. That probably didn't happen either. How many of you have that giant folder? It's probably virtual now. It used to be a big stack of papers on my desk that was not getting read. Okay, that's what that day looks like. So let's just say you did this with a mentee and you said, okay, now let's find out which one of these was more fun. Wouldn't it be great to have a job someday where you were doing things that you actually like to do? So a lot of the times when I'm working with early career science or STEM mentees, they don't really know what they want to do. They know what they're doing now. They're learning and they love it, but they don't know where they want to go. So what are the characteristics of the job I want to move to? Well, what are the things that I like? Well, I like public speaking. That's fortunate. I do not like reading legal documents. They put me to sleep. This was really important and priority, but torture for me. Tech transfer career, not for me. I know tons of super happy tech transfer scientists that are working as lawyers or patent attorneys or patent agents. Fabulous, not for me. I really like collaborating. Actually like reading papers. That still didn't win. But I like collaborating with people. And so those are some of the things. I still did not make dinner. I still probably did not call my parents. So what if you ranked them again and said, not only what do I like, but what am I good at, right? Wouldn't it be great if 10 years from now you were doing something that you both liked and were good at least as part of your job? So these are really fun ways to spur conversation. So these tools look a little silly. There's a lot of tools like this: Strengths Finder, conflict mode resolution, communication styles. The thing about tools is the actual test itself is not the important part. The important part is the conversation you have after. And so if you imagine this is one of those like Facebook or Instagram, surveys like, what dog are you? Or what Star Wars character are you? Taking it is not interesting. What's interesting is, what did you turn out to be? And what is the answer that you got? And what does that say to yourself about what I do next? So I really like using these types of tools in mentoring relationships because they spur some really fantastic and fun conversation. I also have associated with my mentoring resources a lot of curriculum. So you can even have a mentoring group where you don't figure out what you want to talk about. You use a curriculum that's really strong. I have a LinkedIn post on this. Might also be on the Addgene blog, where it's 7 months of great mentoring. And each of these items is accompanied by an article and a book and a video you can watch and a tool and things that you can do to work on that topic for that session. So nothing wrong with using curricula in your mentoring relationships. It can be really beneficial to getting conversation and productive work started. You might also take one of these things and work on it for 8 months, the same thing. These are topics that can go extremely deep. And so, these tools can be used in many different ways, and these curricula can be used in many different ways. Okay, goal setting. So I'm a big stickler for goal setting. I try really hard to do it for myself, and I try really hard to do it with the people that I work with. Setting goals that are measurable, that are realistic. This is the SMART goals outline. If you've never heard this, you've probably never worked at a pharma company yet. Big companies love the SMART goal thing. You want your goals to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. So you don't want to say, I'm going to get a job as a professor in, sometime. You want to say, a year from now, I'm going to be interviewing for professor positions in this country, and here's how I'm going to get there. And that's what a development plan is. A development plan is breaking down a big goal like that into the small steps that are needed to be done. This is a great thing to work on with a mentoring group or a mentor or mentee, fleshing out that plan. What are the little steps I can take that are going to get me to a larger goal that I want? It could be something much simpler. I want to be a better speaker. What's the plan I'm going to make to be a better speaker? I see that being a good speaker would benefit my science career, but it's not my strength yet. I want to spend the next year working on that. And you can set out SMART goals to get you to the point where you've created talks, you've practiced them, starting with short ones, maybe moving into longer ones, and with the eventual goal of perhaps doing a webinar of your own. There are many, many ways to use the development plan, the SMART goal format. Goal setting is super important for this sort of thing. So why does mentoring work? It works because mentors and mentees bring one another accountability to drive growth and change. I used to go to a gym every morning, and there were some days when I did not want to get out of bed, but I go to the gym with a few friends of mine, and my phone is going to start ringing. Where are you, Joanne? We're all at the gym. That accountability is really what helps make mentoring work. If you say, I want to make this change, your group or your mentor is going to say, I'm going to help you get there by asking you about it and working through the steps with you. So that's really the secret sauce of mentoring. It's more the accountability. It's not specifically who it is, but it's someone that takes your growth seriously and makes you accountable. Okay, so I'm just going to spend 2 minutes updating you on what's going on at Addgene. I do talks like this all the time, and if there are life scientists on, this will just be like 60 seconds of what's up at Addgene, and then I'm happy to open it up to more questions about the mentoring topic or about Addgene as well. So Addgene is a resource for research tools. I hope most people know that if you're a bench life scientist. These are some of the things we have in our collection. We also have huge e-commerce and education capabilities. Things are a little rough at Addgene right now, I will admit. Usually we distribute about 750 items a day. Today we're distributing probably half that, so it's a little bit frustrating. The world is opening up though. Scientists are starting to request again, and we're working hard to get back to normal. Addgene's a nonprofit, so when we don't distribute, we don't have funds to run the organization. So we're struggling right now, and hope that the emergency passes and research resurges again. This is how many plasmids we've distributed. It's actually now close to 1.3 million. This is our viral vector project, growing very quickly. We're already up to some tens of thousands of viral vector samples distributed to scientists all over the world. We also have huge educational resources. A lot of the stuff that I talked about today is on the Addgene blog. Our blog has both great career content, but tons of science content on areas that of importance to molecular biologists and other scientists. We have a lot of protocol pages. We have in-person technical support. PhD scientists will answer the phone and give you help finding what you need from the collection. We have tons of free eBooks and other downloadable resources, both on careers and on science topics. So the Addgenes are still working. They're amazing. They've been in the lab since mid-March with distancing and masking to make sure that scientists can still share their materials openly. That's our mission, and now more than ever, we need open sharing. Scientists have been incredibly good to quickly share their coronavirus-related materials, SARS-CoV-2, SARS-CoV-1. This shifted a little, but these are some of the hot. Blue is hot at Addgene, blue, yellow, red, and so these materials are available and rapidly being distributed. You can see the date here from 3/23 into May, how quickly we're distributing COVID-19 related plasmids. There's a teeny tiny silver lining to this whole COVID-19 thing, which is really awful, and that is that more of our plasmids are available to industry. We're really excited about that. Apparently science is more open by a universal health crisis, go figure. And since March, we've had over 1,000 new plasmids, and almost all of those are available to both academic and industry scientists. In the past, most of our collection was only available to academic. Now we're opening it up pretty quickly, and we're really excited about this, bridging that gap. So from a career perspective, please think about the nonprofit space. Nonprofit science and STEM careers are fabulous opportunities, often overlooked. And I don't mean academia, which is sometimes nonprofit. I mean all the other millions of different careers you can have in interesting nonprofit science. These are roles at Addgene that are held by scientists. None of them are academia or pharma, and all of them are super interesting. The Addgenes are very happy, even in this day and age. This is when we used to get to see each other in person. It's a great place to work, this is the kind of career that you're looking for. You want to look for places that support mentoring and learning and inclusion and diversity. And with that, I am happy to take any questions. The Mentoring 101 ebook is in fact available at blog.addgene.org. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Joanne. This was very insightful. Thanks for taking time out and giving us like really length and breadth of the whole mentoring sphere, and especially the interesting part about peer-to-peer mentoring and how people can build that part. So we have one question here from Adam. Adam says, how do you go about asking mentees, especially those from different backgrounds from you, what their preferred mentoring styles are, and if they don't know how to answer, how would you go about getting that information?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what that means. There are best practices that I shared. It doesn't really have anything to do with style. It has to do with skill. Good questioning, bringing in tools, setting goals. I think you can do those in your own style. If you are quiet, you may do that in a more quiet way. If you are more talkative, you may generate more conversation. Um, so, I don't eh, this is not a management relationship. So I have a whole separate webinar on Management 101, and there's the Managing 101 book for scientists at Addgene. And you can actually, I think we've recorded that webinar on the Addgene YouTube site. So management style and working with people as a one-on-one managing relationship is where you really need to work together on each other's style and what you need the most. I once had an employee say, which I love this, I wish everybody, just like a computer, had an operating manual. Like, tell me how to work with me. So, and that is about good communication and open trust. So, for example, I don't mind when people pop in my office back in the day. I tell them, you can pop in. If my door's open, I don't care if it's a last minute request. But some people hate that. And that's a thing you really want to know right away. Please don't pop in my office or come to my desk. I want you to message me or email me in advance, give me a little warning. I don't like surprises. That's a great thing to know about someone, how receptive they're going to be to your comments. This is like a tiny example, right? So that's really about managing. It's not really about so much about mentoring, although I suppose some of the same rules would apply. Yeah.
And thank you. We have another question from Paige. Paige is actually one of the members from Cell and Molecular Biology who's been helping to build this peer-to-peer mentoring program at UC
Oh,
Irvine.
great.
Thank you,
Congratulations.
Paige. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great initiative. And this is the reason why we wanted to do this workshop. So Paige has a question. She first says, thank you, Joanne. This workshop was very helpful. And then she asks, how do you best address difficult questions from a mentee?
So I think you want to be clear up front in the training that you are not dealing with performance issues, personnel issues, harassment issues, or any of those legal issues in mentoring groups or relationships. And I can send you the handbook and the slides that go with the mentoring training. It is so important that you get the participants in a room together and make sure they're all trained on that information. The success of the program can depend on it. So we directly advise people that if someone comes to their group or calls them outside the group and says, I'm having a problem with my advisor, it's this type of problem, this is not the place for that. You need to go to HR, you need to go to an ombudsman. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't be a friend and a shoulder and be sympathetic, but you're not going to solve those kinds of problems in a mentoring relationship. Mentoring relationships are about professional development and growth. They are not counseling. They are friendship and support. So sometimes mentors are cheerleaders. You can do it, but they are not psychology. They are not therapy. They are not intervention in HR or legal issues. This doesn't mean that in a well-established mentoring group of people that care about one another, they won't support you and give you advice on how to navigate a difficult situation, right? But it is not going to be solved that way. So I don't know exactly what kind of difficult questions you're asking, but if it's those types of questions, that's not what a mentoring program is for, especially peer mentoring. That's really asking too much in a you don't really know the person. Now, again, someone you've been working with for a year comes to you and says, I had this terrible experience. I might connect them with resources and ways and support them through a harassment issue or whatever. But that's not what the relationship is for. And if the person is too whiny and too needy, you need to tell them that. That's not what we're here for. It's the mentor's job to redirect into skill building and growth, professional growth. We're not, we always say, you can all complain for the first 15 minutes over the first glass of wine and then get to work. Mentoring groups especially should be working on topics for professional development and learning. I hope that answers your question.
So I always get asked this question from when we do mentoring program, other than when we provide mentors, we select mentors and they want to participate. People always have like, where do I find mentors when a mentoring program is not going on? Are there any
Right.
specific avenues people can tap into?
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of slide, 2, and I think there's more on that in the mentoring ebook. You really just need to look at the people around you, and it could be a postdoc in your group, it could be a colleague at your company that you admire, that you have coffee with once a month, and you talk about some, again, with the goal of developing professional skills. You can talk with your friends and complain about your job all you want. That's fine. You should do that with your friends. You should do that with your partners. You might do that with your family. That's not what mentoring is about. We're talking about professional development and growth with the use of another person, bringing you accountability and experience. That's what we're talking about. And so, anybody who you admire who falls in that category, who can teach you something, is a person you might want to pursue. Yeah.
So I think there's a clarification, one more elaboration from Paige on the question.
Yeah.
She said the question was regarding more like when somebody comes to you and then says how difficult time they're having in a lab, like it may not be a great fit. If they're struggling to be productive, to have productive conversation with the PI about performance in the lab.
Right. So all you can do there is say, okay, productive discussions with a superior. We can work on that. That is a skill for which there is resources. And now there's so many really bad PIs that, you may be able to do nothing, unfortunately. And I'm not trying, I only know this from my own experience. I've worked with, I speak to some hundreds of science trainees every month, even now on Zoom, and a lot of them have PIs who are very poor communicators and often bad mentors. There are great ones out there, by the way. If I could give you one piece of advice, please watch my How to Choose a Lab webinar coming up this month from Addgene, because please do not decide because the science is cool. You should be choosing good mentors and avoiding the bad mentors. The bad mentors don't deserve you, but that's another tirade. Okay. So, but if someone comes to you and says, I'm having trouble communicating with my PI, that's a great topic to work on. There's tons of literature on communication, how to improve communication with a manager and a managee, because your PI is that, they're your manager as well. I once gave this talk, I think I was at Scripps. I want to say I was at Scripps. I think it was Scripps. And I gave a mentoring workshop there. And somebody in the room asked me, how do I know if I have a PI or a mentor? And I said, well, how many of you came here today and snuck out of the lab and didn't tell your PI where you were going? And most of the hands in the room raised. And I said, and how many of you told your PI that you had an opportunity to learn about great mentors from someone who was going to speak about it, and they knew that you were coming to this workshop? And 3 out of 30 hands were raised. I said, you guys have mentors and you all have bosses. Okay. So that's the difference. It would be great if as a science trainee you had mentors. It is what you deserve. It is what you are in for. It is what you need. Unfortunately, too many PIs are not. But you can always improve communication with people if they have good intention. There was a question up above, why do I not believe in managing up? I don't mean like slightly improving communication with your PI by sitting down and having a heart-to-heart about what's not working for you, and then they modify their behavior and you work together to make things go better. That's like a normal manager, managee, trainee, trainer, we're learning how to work together, that's normal. That kind of managing up you can do. The person is willing to work with you. But if the person is not willing to work with you, and if they're just, if they're in any way berating you or beating you or abusing, and I don't just mean physically, but I mean psychological abuse, there's no way you're going to change their mind. There's no way. And so that's a situation where you really want to work. The longer you spend in that lab, the more miserable you will be and the less you will learn. Same thing with jobs. Now, I understand you have to make money. Sometimes you have to put up with a job, but you should be getting out of that job if your direct manager is someone who is not willing to work with you. Not every manager is fabulous, but if you have a really bad one, it's usually not worth your time to try and manage up. So that answered a question that came earlier. It's my personal opinion from my experience. Most managing up, when people come to me and say, how do I manage up? I say, tell me the situation. You should manage out, write your resume. So, that's just people. They're only going to change so much. Okay. Great. I think I don't see any more questions. Harinder, did I get everything?
Yes, I think you got everything. This is great. Like, when there are two times when people don't have any questions. Either they went to sleep, which is not the case, which I'm very sure about, or they like got everything and now they're super charged up and they're reading the materials which I just sent them.
Okay,
So
great.
this is for sure the second part, and I really appreciate Joanne taking time out, and we've had great relationship in the past. In fact, Joanne was our keynote speaker for the very first symposium we ran at U of Illinois, Chicago. It was a lot of work, and Joanne was ready to come all the way. And we were struggling with funding at that time. You were very nice and very generous to come and take.
I miss traveling. I miss seeing y'all in person. Hopefully I'll come visit someday.
Yeah, you have to now. We were at UIC, now you have to come at UCI.
Yeah, right.
I always struggle with that. But okay, I think we have one question. That last point is really great. Hilly says, thank you. I felt a lot of guilt in the past for managing out.
Oh, yeah, no, that's just a career. You can move on. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to share my own PhD experience also. While I was in PhD, as you said, it's they are good advisors, but not very good mentors. And I was miserable. But when I got out of it, then I was able to look back and say that it was not my fault. It was not my fault that I was in that space. And that was very powerful. And I got all this only during the mentoring.
Yeah. Sometimes a good mentor who's outside your bad current relationship can say to you, "You're not crazy. That's bad." And if that's the only thing that you do, it can be of value. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much again, Joanne. And we look forward to the next seminar you mentioned about. I'll keep in touch, and I can maybe send an email out to everyone.
Yep.
And
just follow Addgene on social media. You'll see the invitations go up.
Yep.
And you can also, it'll be recorded and on our YouTube channel. It's coming up in about 3 weeks. It's about 3 weeks from now. So.
Okay. Great.
Okay.
And also remember, I posted Dr. Kamens' LinkedIn profile link. So please connect with Dr. Kamens, and please do not forget to write a brief note, because Dr. Kamens is not going to accept your request if you do not say why you are connecting. This is the basics of LinkedIn networking.
Yeah, and actually I have a new blog on the Addgene blog called 7 Tips for Using LinkedIn, and read that first. So. Okay.
Awesome. All right. Thank you again. Thank you all for coming. Take care,
everybody.
stay safe, and take care of yourself.